They called me the ugly duckling. I became the swan they never saw coming. Growing up, I was always the shadow to my sister's spotlight. While she was praised for her beauty and charm, I was often overlooked, my achievements dismissed as mere flukes. Family gatherings felt like stages where she performed and I was the forgotten prop. At school, I found solace in the computer lab. The hum of machines and the logic of code provided an escape from the constant comparisons at home. I spent hours learning to program, creating simple games, and exploring the vast world of technology. It was in this digital realm that I discovered a sense of competence and control that eluded me in my family life. Despite my growing skills, my parents remained indifferent. They saw my interest in computers as a hobby, not a potential career. When I shared my aspiration to study computer science in college, they scoffed, suggesting I pursue something more suitable. But I was determined. I applied to universities on my own, secured scholarships, and eventually moved out to start a new chapter. Leaving home was both liberating and terrifying, but I knew it was the only way to build a life on my terms. If they wouldn't see my worth, I'd build a world where I could. College was nothing like home. There were no backhanded comments about my looks, no smug reminders that I wasn't charming like my sister. It was just me, a borrowed laptop, and the world of code I was finally free to immerse myself in. I still remember the first time someone asked for my help in class. It was a guy named Trevor, struggling to debug a Python script. When I helped him fix it, he didn't look at me like I was some fluke. He thanked me genuinely. And for the first time, I felt respected. I worked nights in the campus IT office to pay for my books. Days were lectures and labs. Weekends, I spent building things, small tools, plugins, even a game mod that went semi-viral on Reddit. My world wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every keystroke was a step further from the voices that told me I wasn't enough. I didn't call home much. When I did, it was short. My parents asked about grades like it was a formality, quickly switching the topic to how amazing my sister's boyfriend was or her recent modeling shoot. It was easier to nod and smile through the silence on my end of the line. What they didn't know, what I never told them, was that I was winning hackathons, getting internships, and already being scouted by recruiters. I was still the same girl they once overlooked, but I was no longer asking to be seen. I was becoming someone they wouldn't even recognize that I didn't need their blessing. Just a chance, and I made one. When I got the acceptance letter from MIT for a graduate program, full scholarship, living stipend, mentorship from a leading AI researcher, I sat in the library alone and cried. Not because I was surprised, but because I knew no one in my family would ask how I did it. I didn't tell them. I moved from state to state with just a duffel bag and an external hard drive, renting a tiny studio above a laundromat. While my peers called home for moral support or weekend cash, I quietly filled my fridge with cheap noodles and plotted the future I'd build with every sleepless night. At MIT, I found more than professors and classes. I found validation. People who cared what I thought. I joined a research lab, led a small team in a startup incubator, and began drafting a concept that had haunted me for months, a new kind of game engine, one that mimicked emotion, not just physics. Meanwhile, my family's silence was louder than any insult. I'd post achievements online and hear nothing. When I received a prestigious national tech fellowship, my inbox stayed empty. No, we're proud of you. No, well done. But the silence no longer stung. It reminded me who I was doing this for. Me. The farther I went, the more I saw their absence as freedom. I wasn't proving them wrong anymore. I was proving me right. They dismissed me as a dreamer. I became the architect of a reality they couldn't fathom. The transition from student to professional was both exhilarating and daunting. Armed with a degree and an unwavering determination, I ventured into the tech industry, a realm where I could finally channel my passion into tangible creations. I began by assembling custom PCs for local clients, each project honing my skills and deepening my understanding of hardware intricacies. Simultaneously, I immersed myself in the world of software development, experimenting with various programming languages and frameworks. The breakthrough came when I conceptualized a novel game engine that integrated advanced physics simulations with adaptive AI behavior. This innovation aimed to revolutionize user interaction within virtual environments, offering a more immersive and responsive gaming experience. After months of development and countless iterations, I presented a prototype at a prominent tech conference. The response was overwhelming. Industry leaders and investors expressed keen interest, recognizing the potential impact of my creation. Securing a substantial investment, I established my own startup, assembling a team of talented individuals who shared my vision. Together, we refined the engine, attracting partnerships with major gaming studios and earning accolades for innovation. Throughout this journey, I maintained a deliberate distance from my family. Their earlier dismissals and lack of support had left an indelible mark, and I chose to focus on building a future unencumbered by past negativity. In the solitude of my achievements, I found a profound sense of fulfillment. The success wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal, a testament to resilience and self-belief that I didn't shout my success from rooftops. I lived it quietly and fully, without asking anyone's permission. The day I signed the publishing deal for our game engine, I sat alone in the high-rise apartment I had bought with my earnings. No champagne, no celebration, just silence and the humming skyline outside my window. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing validation. I was already enough. Our company grew quickly. We signed exclusive contracts with game studios, integrated our engine into immersive training platforms, and expanded into simulation technologies. I was no longer a girl huddled behind a computer in a quiet lab. I was a founder, a CEO, a name in the industry. And still, I told no one back home. Not because I was hiding, but because I no longer felt the need to explain myself. My success wasn't their business. I bought a home, modern, sunlit, filled with plants and peace. I adopted a rescue dog. I kept my last name. I traveled, spoke at conferences, mentored young women in tech. I sent flowers to my old programming teacher with a simple note. You saw me before I did. The silence from my family remained, too. No calls, no emails, no apologies. And it suited me. They'd never celebrated me, so their absence felt more like consistency than loss. Then came the article. A journalist covering women in tech innovation wrote a profile on me, my journey, my product, my company. It went viral. Suddenly, I was no longer invisible. And that's when the silence broke. My old phone number, one I hadn't changed for no reason, started to light up. Hey, the first text read. We saw you on the news. Congrats. Maybe we could catch up sometime. The message was from my sister. The rest of the family followed like clockwork. Success didn't erase the past, it only exposed who remembered it differently. They planned a dinner. My sister called it a celebration. At first, I ignored the messages, but something gnawed at me, not guilt, not curiosity, but a desire to see their faces when they had to look at mine. I arrived at the restaurant precisely on time. My sister beamed, dressed to impress. Her husband sat beside her, looking uncomfortable. My parents greeted me like I was returning from a long, voluntary vacation, not a lifetime of exile. We're so proud of you, my mother said, clutching my hand too tightly. We always knew you had potential. That word, always, landed like a slap. Dinner was civil, polite, hollow. They asked about the company, the house, even the dog. No one asked about the nights I cried alone, about the meals I skipped to afford textbooks, or the times I questioned my own worth because they had made sure I would. Then came the shift. So, my sister said lightly, we wanted to ask you something. Her voice tightened. We've run into some financial issues. The business, well, it didn't work out. We're trying to hold on to the house. My father leaned in. She and her husband have been under so much pressure. And, sweetheart, you're in a position to help. There it was. They hadn't come for connection. They came for correction. They thought success had made me soft. I looked at each of them. Slowly. Calmly. No, I said. A pause followed. Then shock. Then denial. But we're family, my sister whispered. You never acted like it, I replied. I walked out of that restaurant without a backward glance, carrying nothing but my peace. The silence that followed my refusal was heavier than any insult they'd ever thrown at me. My father looked stunned. My mother's expression collapsed into disappointment, and my sister's eyes burned with a cocktail of rage and disbelief. You're bitter, she hissed. All this money, and you're still bitter. No, I replied quietly. I'm just done pretending you were ever kind. My mother reached across the table. You're misunderstanding. I pulled my hand away. No, I've remembered everything exactly as it happened. I was the invisible child. The punchline. The backup plan. You didn't raise me. You tolerated me. Tears welled up in my sister's eyes, but not the kind that came from remorse. They were the tears of someone who had always believed herself untouchable, suddenly realizing she wasn't. You want money, I said, standing. But what I built didn't come from your encouragement. It came from surviving your neglect. They tried to stop me. Words like forgiveness, family, and healing were thrown like confetti in a room that had long been empty. I walked to the door. Outside, The air was cold but clear. I could hear the faint sounds of city life, horns, laughter, a siren in the distance. But most of all, I heard silence in my soul. The kind that finally replaces chaos when you let go. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't second guess. I went home, curled up with my dog, and opened my laptop. There were projects to plan, people to hire, ideas to shape into the future. The past could knock, but I no longer answered. And for the first time, I truly understood. Freedom doesn't always look like flight. Sometimes, it's just the strength to stop returning to where you were never seen. I walked out of that restaurant without a backward glance, carrying nothing but my peace.